We're live talking Jacksonville Jaguars football on the Our Football Network, Proline TV, as we get ready for another NFL season preview interview. And this is going to be the first time that we get an opportunity to talk to someone different for a change here regarding Jacksonville. Of course, John Osher did a great job with us for several years. He's tied in with the Jags as their lead site guy, editor over there at the Jacksonville Jaguars headquarters. And of course, he's done a great job. But this is our opportunity to talk to someone who is not as maybe closely tied to the Jaguars front office. So I'm really happy. And this is a good opportunity to maybe get a little bit more information from someone that, I know John tried not to be totally biased at any point, and he wasn't. He was really good at breaking down things for us here. And I know it's a tough job when you're associated with the team and all that kind of stuff. But we have a new Jacksonville insider joining us here. We want to thank Travis Holmes for talking to us here from from bigcatcountry.com. We have links in the description. You can check it out. So, Travis, thanks for doing this. Hopefully this is one of many more we can talk about a Jacksonville Jaguars football team that looks like maybe there's a nice future ahead for them.
I mean, the arrow is pointing up. We'll say the trajectory is looking great on the horizon. We haven't seen the guys in pads yet, so that's everything. Everyone's loving it, and it's sunshine and rainbows at this time of year for most teams, if you're not like the Tennessee Titans or the Colts. But for the most part, yes, this is the time of year where everyone's loving it, and there's nothing that can go wrong, knock on wood. We'll see what happens come Wednesday when we finally see those guys tomorrow morning out on the Miller Electric Center practice fields. But I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Travis. So tell us about this Duval Dive podcast. You do it several times a week?
Yes, sir. I mean, our bare minimum is you're looking at, 2 times if it's just the deadest of the deadest time frame. But for the most part, we're 4 to 5 times a week. The Duval Dive, myself with bigcatcountry.com, Kyle, the student of the game, Nash with Fans First Sports Network. We both cover the Jaguars. We just give you our takes, what we're hearing on the scene, what we're seeing and observing in practice and training camps, etc. Any breaking news, and also a lot more the analytical parts of football, because he's a former offensive lineman. I'm a former cornerback. We kind of hope we can just kind of take it from both sides of the equation and give you our unbiased takes, because again, we're not so nearly connected with the team that we can't just be a little bit more honest about what we're seeing.
Yeah, you can't rip them too much because then they'll take away some of those privileges that you don't want to.
That's a fair point. You're walking that tightrope. Yeah,
yes, you do. That's absolutely true. But look, hopefully there'll be a lot more positive things to talk about with the program, and I think that that's the case. But before we get into that, again, bigcatcountry.com. So how long have you been working for them?
Overall, we'll say 4 years.
Okay.
Recently, the last 2 years. It was 2 years. Took a hiatus in corporate America. Came back the last 2 years. Been a beat writer, just hit the ground running after being hungry for more football and truly getting into it. And we got to witness that famed 2022 season, for the Jaguars, probably the recent highs, and then we saw the more recent lows.
Yeah.
As of late, but nevertheless, being able to see both that high and that low from the media stance, it's been great. But also the fact that I was a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, a lot of people don't know that. Like, I actually grew up in Jacksonville and was a fan of the team, and then just so happened to play college football and maneuver my way into being able to cover the team that I already love.
That's great.
Great situation.
Awesome. That's great. Congratulations to that. And hopefully, there'll be many more of this, and who knows what lies ahead. You've got a long career, hopefully, ahead of you. And like you said, it's a real fun industry to be in. It's a lot more funner when the team is playing well. And I do like the direction, though, starting with General Manager James Gladstone. That really looked like a home run hire for the organization. And I know things were ugly with the whole head coach, the way it went about. But we don't need to get into that. The fact is they got their guy. And James Gladstone has a good record. I know it's a first-time GM, but everybody has to start somewhere. And if Gladstone just does the job that a lot of people believe he can do, and Cohen can just continue to coach as well as his trajectory has just gone bonkers the last couple of years. Like I said, there's a lot of hope here, and so far so good.
So far so good. On BigCatCountry.com, we did general manager profiles for all of the general manager candidates that the team was interviewing initially. This is throughout the process. Early on, no one was really doing it at the time, so it was kind of like a good thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Duval Devout, we call them, the Jacksonville community, to kind of be able to be a quote-unquote specialist on all these guys while we're trying to figure out who's the best guy. But even early on in the process, I said, no one's talking about this guy from the Rams, and I don't understand why he's not at the top of all these teams' lists for a general manager. Like, he's done it. They built this team in multiple different ways. The fact that he's hit on these picks and rebuilt this thing after Aaron Donald's retirement, all the accolades, et cetera, and then they end up landing that guy later in the process, and I'm just looking like this genius. Like, hey, I told you, but
there you go.
Yeah, great. It looks like a genius. Now he has to do the work. Obviously, he has to land on his picks. He has to build this thing in the ways that he visions it. So I'm hoping, just for the sake of the fans, that he is successful doing that. But I also I'm cautiously optimistic with how this is going to work for 2025. Because I know he was also late in the process being brought in and didn't have his scouts, didn't have his guys already in his processes already in place. So I don't know fully what to expect with some of the draft picks and the guys they brought in, because I don't know how much of it was his process, but I'm curious to see how it's going to kind of land, and trying to keep a 2-year window looking at this build for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025.
Yeah, I'm a big Les Snead fan. I just think, like you said, the Rams, what they did over there, even just the last few years after the Super Bowl, is just miraculous. And he didn't do it all himself. He had, guys like Gladstone helping him. And so if you come from that organization, you must be doing something right. And that's the reason why I'm very optimistic about this hire. And first things first, because you talk about the draft, and I know we didn't have time to talk at that time, but the whole Travis Hunter situation. The fan base just must have. I'm guessing that the fan base was ecstatic when they made this move, but they did have to give up a lot of capital. So was it really one-sided that the fan base was all for this? Were they questioning it? And for the entire draft, which I thought was a good draft, it looks like it's a good one on paper to me. How was the fan reaction?
Well, from my perspective, and being a writer at BigCatCountry.com, which is the SB Nation's fan site, so I'm able to talk to a lot of the fans, in the Duval County area, whether it's in the comments, whether it's in group chats, whether it's in groups, etc. Across the board, I've seen it was just ecstatic, because Jaguar fans, generally speaking, and I won't speak for all of them, but I will say the consensus that I was seeing throughout the entire late 2024 season to right at the time of the draft was, oh man, we beat the Tennessee Titans in the second game, and now we've just lost the ability to draft Travis Hunter. From day one, it was always Travis Hunter.
Wow.
That was the guy that most people in Duval County wanted. So they thought at pick 5 there was no way they were going to get him. So to see Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, EVP Tony Baselli make that aggressive move and go and get their guy, and it only cost them a 2026 first round draft pick, and we'll see what that becomes. And I say only because if you're looking at the draft in 2025, it didn't seem like Cleveland fans or media were very happy with what they hauled away in this trade for Travis Hunter versus Bayshaw Tootin, Rayon Lane, and Travis Hunter basically were the Jacksonville Jaguars picks, whereas the Cleveland Browns ended up getting the running back who recently got arrested.
That's not a good look.
And Mason Graham and the first round draft pick. So it's like that looks moderately even. If the Jacksonville Jaguars are picking even 15th in that middle range in the draft next year, that's an even trade all the way. So overall, I think most fans are ecstatic about it, because you got the best talent in the draft, and you may have paid, knock on wood, a reasonable cost to get it.
Yeah, I think for Cleveland's point of view,
Hmm.
I think it's from speaking of Fred Greetham, our insider for the Browns. We spoke to
Yep.
him just a few weeks ago as well. But at the time, he talked about it really being because everybody knows this wasn't a very strong quarterback class.
Yep.
And once Cam Ward is off the board, then you're pretty much done with the first round type talent there of guys that you feel can really be a franchise type quarterback.
Yeah.
So what the Browns did was they decided, hey, let's get that extra first round draft pick and we're going to use it for next year. And we're going to ensure that we have enough draft capital to get the guy we want next year. And I think they've accomplished that. So now next year, of course, is what they have to make sure that they, no matter where Jacksonville's pick is, you have that much capital, you've got enough ammunition. You just have to make sure you make the move and all. So, yeah, so I think this will work out for both teams, both franchises, if the Browns get their guy. And obviously, if Trevor Lawrence can start to redeveloping, having Travis Hunter possibly there on either side of the ball, as long as he turns into the type of player that everybody believes he can be, is going to be a major help to everybody, including Lawrence. So, I don't really buy into the whole, a team has to win a trade or lose a trade. I think it's great when both teams win. I think that's the best for both worlds from the outside point of view as well.
That is absolutely fair. There's so few of them where it's like a true win-win, but they absolutely do exist, and it's a great situation when it occurs. So hopefully it does for the Cleveland Browns. I have no animosity towards them, and I don't think most of Duval County really does. So hey, I hope it works for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, Jacksonville, actually, I think they have a better playoff record than the Browns ever since the Jags has been an NFL team. So, yeah, Browns are no competition in that respect. Hopefully in a couple of years, if the Browns get their guy, their quarterback will be thrown against Travis Hunter. That would be nice. But all right, so let's get into I tell you what, let's first of all talk about we'll start first of all with the coaching staff. We know about Cohen, and what do you think from what you've heard so far, or what you know about Cohen, or what you know about his staff? What are they going to do? What's their goal? What's their not goal, but what is their remedy?
Like the philosophy, the scheme?
Well, what is their idea of trying to do what even Doug Peterson couldn't do, and that's make Trevor Lawrence into the best possible quarterback he can be, because we know he's not there yet. So what do you think that's going to be from these guys?
So, I mean, let's start with the basics, just the nuts and bolts of NFL offenses. You have to give quarterbacks layups. You simply cannot be successful if you're a bad team at running screens. The Jacksonville Jaguars were, in the entirety of Doug Peterson's tenure, a below average to even bottom tier of the league, in the actual EPA when they're running screens. And that's whether it's wide receiver screens or running back screens.
Okay.
It was always a weird thing, where even in 2023, when they had Calvin Ridley, they were middle of the league in their efficiency at running screens, but they were nearly at the top of the league in the amount of times that they ran them, because they struggled so badly in running the ball. So at that point, you're taking away one of the easiest ways to get your quarterback those quote unquote empty yards. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were like fourth in the league in 2024 and running in their bubble screens, their running back screens and such, because Baker Mayfield was just able to kind of pick up those empty yards. The same thing with Jaden Daniels over in Washington. It's a lot of those simple plays that you can just make it not so difficult. Everything does not have to be so high variance for your quarterback.
Sure.
And that's what it was a lot of the time for Trevor Lawrence. And everyone is made down him because he's kind of honestly volatile, depending on the week by week basis, depending on the scheme of the defense they're playing against, and weaknesses of his offense. But overall, I think the easiest thing that Liam Cohen can do is just do the same thing you did with Baker Mayfield and just give this man an efficient running game, not even explosive. I didn't say explosive, just efficient. Something that you can on average pick up that 3.5 to 4 yards and give him those ability to make those basic throws, just throwing more slants, which Doug Peterson in 2024, for some odd reason, strayed away from, even though that was a staple in his offense in 2022, crossers and slants. He just stopped doing it. Getting back to that, basic, simple routes, and then have the explosives like kind of be built off of that. I think just that will make Trevor Lawrence, you're putting him in that range of, all right, cool.
Okay.
He's going to be an above average quarterback to maybe even a top 10 quarterback, just giving him the layups, because there weren't very many of those.
Yeah, we know that Lawrence, one of the things about him that he already has going for him is he's one of the better deep passers in the league.
Right.
And we know that is a big deal. And he's got that. And you know it's in his game. We've seen it. It's there. And he's young enough. He's like he's in the prime of his career. So
and even in 2024, in that rough season that it was, he was still top 5 in the league in his deep ball passing. If you're listening to Pro Football Focus, so he has that.
Yes,
it's the other stuff that he just needs. Hey, throw more slants, throw more crossers, give him just the basic layup routes, and let the receivers do the work, do the heavy lifting there.
And that's why I do have faith and confidence that things can get turned around here. Now, I don't know how quickly as we go through the roster, but there are those elements on the team that you really like, because if you can put together a couple of dynamic players on both sides of the ball, that means you've maybe accomplished the hard part, because not a lot of teams have like superstar talent on both sides of the ball. Jaguars have that. The problem is the depth. The depth is not very good. The personnel over the last couple of years has been bad, as you know. I don't have to tell you this. So that's why it's going to take time to really develop the depth. But also, it does matter who the coach is, because the coaching staff is part of that problem of why the players haven't been able to develop. And I'm not trying to take any blame off of the former GM or personnel guys, but it's a kind of give and take. And I kind of feel confident that, within the next couple of years, if they just keep doing the job that Gladstone knows he can do, and bringing in the right guys, and the coaches do their job, that the Jaguars would be a legitimate playoff team, maybe as early as 2026 for sure. Because we know even 2025, they should be able to at least get themselves back into respectability.
I think I agree. And honestly, I think that piece that you just stated is going slightly under the radar, only because they were a 4-win team in 2025. But if you were someone who's watching those games, especially towards the end of that season when Mac Jones was the starting quarterback, you would understand that team realistically was probably at least a 7-win football team. If Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram don't get injured, like they don't just lose everyone, and they're not against the Green Bay Packers running 3 tight end sets with one healthy wide receiver. Like, when you're not in those scenarios, you might actually like have a team that could win 7 games. All of a sudden, you're looking at this Liam Cohen experience in year 1 a little bit differently. Like, hey, maybe they could be you wouldn't think it was a wild take to say maybe they could win 9 to 10 games, because they were just at 7 last season, as bad as a season as that was.
That's the NFL. It's why we love it. Because that's why I'm saying with Jacksonville, they have the talent to surprise people and win several more games than people think. And it's a division that is not very tough. You got Houston at the top, everybody knows. But even Houston was a little bit inconsistent last year, probably more so because of the schedule. But hey, they got another first place schedule. So, they got to keep playing like that, or they got to keep upping their game every year. And that's what happens when you're winning the division each year with this new regime, new quarterback and such. You also have to stay healthy and all that other stuff. So speaking of health, how are the Jags heading into training camp? Do they have any key injuries that you need to keep an eye on?
I mean, the keyest of key injuries is Trevor Lawrence himself. Obviously, he's coming off of his non-throwing shoulder AC joint surgery in 2024 that placed him on IR. So, at one point in the OTAs, he had to wear a sling just because he had a little bit of shoulder soreness. But outside of something along those lines, like he seemed generally fine. He swept it under the rug. Hey, it's a non-story. I just had some soreness I hadn't thrown for fill in the blank amount of months, and so he's the quarterback one. Any kind of even remote injury with him is obviously going to be a big, spotlight placed on that. If you're not talking Trevor Lawrence himself, Mason Smith was just placed on the PUP list today.
Okay.
He was seemingly healthy during the
Yeah.
offseason OTAs and mandatory minicamp. So
Yeah.
that one threw a lot of folks off. The veterans just showed up. They just reported today with practice taking place tomorrow morning. So we haven't had a chance to talk to Liam to ask him what happened.
Okay.
But my assumption would just have to be that something happened in that in-between time, maybe with his own conditioning that,
Sure.
popped up. But we see this every offseason. A lot of folks may get a little dinged up. They go on the PUP list for a few weeks. They're back healthy by the start of the season. Then it's a non-story. So we'll see what happens there. But overall, it's a relatively healthy Jacksonville Jaguars team. They'll also have free agent linebacker Dennis Gardeck, who's also going to be opening on the PUP list. But he also had an ACL tear back in October. So that was kind of probably expected when the team signed him, if I had to guess.
And that's his third.
Overall, that's his third. That's his. He had one in high school, and he had one in the 2020 season. So that's a rough one for him. But again, when they signed him, that was obviously something that they would have been aware of. So
sure, yeah.
We'll see what happens there. And you have Cooper Hodges, who's also back in June. He was placed on the PUP list, and then I believe they either put him on IR or not. That seems to be up in dispute. Whether he was on IR or the PUP list, I've seen on one site that he was on IR. I've seen on Jacksonville.com or Florida Times Union that he was placed on the PUP. I don't know which one. I actually plan on asking Coach Cohen about that tomorrow.
Okay.
But that's Cooper Hodges, the backup guard. Many folks thought he was going to be the shoe-in to take over for Brandon Scherf at guard when he eventually retired, and he's kind of been dealing with those season injuries 2 years straight. So that's going to be an interesting one also.
Okay. All right. Let's stay on the offense here. So, are there any training camp battles? So for any of the fans out there ready to go to camp, spend some time there. It's always a fun time. Yes. Everybody loves it. Give them a battle to keep an eye on while they're at camp.
So the most important battle, in my personal opinion, is the offensive guard battle, because there's 3 guys and there's 2 spots. Okay. You have Ezra Cleveland, who's the incumbent at left guard. You have Patrick McCarry, who signed from the Baltimore Ravens, who's likely going to be your starting right guard, in my personal opinion, just because they signed him. He was one of their bigger free agent signings.
Yeah.
He was a versatile guy who can play all 5 offensive line spots, but this sounds like he's probably going to at least start out at the right guard spot from my perspective. And then you have Wyatt Millum, who they drafted, I believe, in the 4th round. Third round. Gosh. Sorry. Yeah, 3rd round. Wyatt Millum.
We've got the depth chart right here from our lads. You could check it out.
And he has the opportunity to either earn a starting guard or over Ezra Cleveland.
I'm sure they would love that. I'm sure they'd love their 3rd round draft pick to win it.
Great.
Yeah.
Or he just have a year of development. So we'll see what happens there. And so that's the most important one, because I think the offensive line, the interior offensive line specifically for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has just been such a problem in the run game. But if you're talking the best, from my perspective, the most fascinating unit is got to be the cornerback competition. And it's not a competition as far as the starting guys. It's just, what are you doing with Travis Hunter? Is that truly going to be him really playing full-time offense, full-time cornerback? Like, is that really what it's going to be?
What do you think he's going to end up being? Because the deal is that everybody believes that, the receiving is the better deal because, well, first of all, you're going to make a lot more money. There's no question about that than you can as a corner. We don't know how important that is. But I will say this though, and I know, of course, with the R-led scouts and all, the fact is that if he maximizes his potential as a wide receiver, he could end up as, top 5, top 7 type wide receiver. But if he maximizes his potential as a corner, he could be the top corner in the NFL. So I can see why, if I'm Jacksonville, and I think it's harder to find shutdown corners than top 10 caliber wide receivers. So I can see why Jacksonville might want to keep him at corner as opposed to receiver, but I could also see the other way around.
Interesting.
How about you? What do you think?
There are a lot of good. Ooh, that's a hard one. So let me take this from two different ways. From Travis Hunter's perspective, I said this back in January, and the receipts are on my Twitter on Travis D. Holmes. Like I got into multiple arguments with multiple people because, again, people in Jacksonville really love Travis Hunter from day one. That I thought, if he's been raised and bred under Deion Sanders, there is a 0% chance that he's not going to want to be primarily looked at as a receiver, because that man is not going to raise them to be financially financially secure in how they do things and run businesses, and then tell them to choose the position that has less money. Like, I could not see a chance that would take place. So that's just from Travis Hunter's perspective.
Sure.
From the team's perspective, well, that's a much harder conversation because you have Tyson Campbell. He's been healthy one of his 4 years in the league. Yeah. So you almost have to view this thing as, I need to make sure I have another guy who could be potentially my Tyson Campbell replacement. If this thing doesn't work out in 2025, he could easily just shoot right into that role and still be a top receiver over here on the other side. Like, it becomes an obvious, like, he feels needs on both sides of this line. So from that perspective, I'm like, all right, from the team perspective, it just makes total sense. Travis Hunter all the way. And we see why they made the trade for him. I think it's going to be something closer to what you may have seen at Colorado. I don't know if it's going to be 85% of snaps at all times. I think it could absolutely be game specific. Like, if you're just going against one of those teams where you think you can dominate on offense and maybe you want to give him a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball, you may have one game where he's at like 90% snaps on defense and 60% on offense, and then one game where he's like 70-80% on offense and you're maybe closer to 50-60% on defense. I still believe at the end of all of it, when you get to the end of the season, it's probably going to look something like 70% of overall snaps on offense and defense combined for Travis Hunter, though. I do believe it's going to look something similar to Colorado.
I'm not going to, you get to these situations where you're like, you do wonder at what level am I getting too old where I can't imagine certain new things happening because it's never happened before. And I've learned my lessons over time to say, you know what, maybe Travis Hunter can do something that nobody's been able to do at this level. I'm not talking about doing it 30 years ago, 40 years ago when they weren't hitting and the guys weren't as big. And so but now, man, if he were to accomplish that, it would be such an amazing thing, because then, I mean, the whole idea of even staying healthy doing it, that's the thing. Can that be the plan? Hey, this is the plan. This is how many snaps we want to see if we can get out of him on offense and defense. Okay, that's a nice plan, but is he going to wear down at the end of the year? And will that be bad for the team if we're not getting his A+ game at one spot, and we're getting B at both spots? No, if we're not getting A at both spots, that can't happen. He has to pick a spot. Fair. But I think he deserves maybe a chance to see if it can happen. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. It really is. But as far as you know, you haven't heard anything. There has been no slip of the tongue as far as any indication of how Jacksonville plans on using him.
If you believe Liam Cohen and James Gladstone to their word, and so far in this 2025 offseason, when they say that they were going to do something, or they say that they're going to aim for something as far as a free agent signing or a draft acquisition, for the most part, when you look back on the signings that they've made, they fit what they've said verbatim. Like, I've had this conversation with multiple people in the media. So I think at this point, they've shown us they're people of their word. They may not give away trade secrets, generally speaking, but they followed, for the most part, to the T what they said they were going to do. So I'm going to just have to trust Liam Cohen when he says, I want this to look more like it looked at Colorado.
Okay.
And let's see what it looks like when you get to week one. But that was his statement. I'm going to have to just go with it until I see otherwise.
Yeah, and then we'll see what I mean, look, they could be their goal, and then the season starts, and after a couple of games, they're going, I don't know, we gotta pick a side here for the most part. So yeah, I mean, but hey, that's fair. Why not open it up, give him a chance?
Right, but early on, if there is a time to do this, just like it was with what was it? Not Charles Woodson. It was another guy who came in the league early on, and I was saying the same thing, and they tried it and it didn't work, and it's fine. But if there's a time for you to do something like this is when he's on his rookie contract, when he has these young legs. Like
Sure.
you may not want to do this when he's already re-up and he's making the biggest contract in league history because he plays both sides of the ball or whatever else. But if you're going to do it, his rookie contract, when this dude has these 20, 21, 22-year-old legs, and you want to just see how far can I take this thing. And if it doesn't work, then you just have a great corner or a great wide receiver.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So, everybody else had to deal with one great corner or one great receiver. So if that's all Jacksonville gets, I think they'll consider themselves very fortunate. Okay. So, all right. So then talk about, let's just get Hunter out of the equation then. So, and you mentioned Campbell, because Campbell got the big deal with the former regime. So,
let me break that last piece down, if you don't mind. I never finished that last piece of that comment. Okay. The more fascinating part of that cornerback competition is the fact that things get real interesting when you talk about Jordan Lewis, who they brought in from Dallas as that third cornerback position, when you also have Jarian Jones, who was, for the most part, from a lot of the advanced analytics and everything else, he's pretty similar to Jordan Lewis. He was a very good slot corner who can play a little bit outside, and they're going to be competing in camp with Monteric Brown, who's also in a contract year, and who's a much better zone corner than a man corner. Like the Jaguars played a lot of man in 2024. Now we presumably be playing a lot more zone in 2025. Okay. So there's three guys, one spot for that cornerback 3 spot that could potentially even become a cornerback 2 spot, depending on how often you play Travis Hunter at corner. That's going to be fascinating because there might be a roster spot that comes down to that period.
Yeah, I like Jones. I think Jones is going to have a good career. And I wasn't surprised that he looked pretty good last year as a rookie. So I think they're in good hands there. And I actually like what they did overall, even with not only with Hunter, but with their other 2 draft picks and even a couple of their free agents, college free agents. I mean, you get Muhammad after the draft. That kid had a really good college career. I even like White and Simon Craig. I think those kids, practice squad guys, to develop those guys, maybe they could be a part of the team in the next couple of years. So with Ransaw, with Lane, they know they needed to add a lot of talent and depth in that secondary, and I think they did a really good job in the first season.
You're right. I think I'm fully in agreement with you. Like someone who's a name that is known in Duval County is going to be cut from this team. Like I'm talking about names you would absolutely recognize if you are someone of the Duval Devout. Like if you're a hardcore Jacksonville Jaguars fan that watched games over the last, 5 to 6 seasons, someone's going to get cut that you absolutely recognize either in that safety room and maybe even in that cornerback room. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation across the secondary, not just but both of those rooms.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Speaking of who do you like? Who has the biggest upside between, you mentioned Brown, and all these guys I'm about to mention are all recent draft picks. You got Antonio Johnson in the secondary. You got Braswell. You got Prince. So out of those guys, who do you think either has the biggest upside, and does anybody have to really fight hard to even just make the roster?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the guys making the roster, Antonio Johnson is going to have it's going to be interesting because he's a heavy special teams guy. I believe about 50% of his snaps, I think it might have been 55% of his snaps in 2024 was special teams related.
Okay.
And the Jaguars kept Heath Farwell, their special teams coordinator, one of the only coaches to stay on staff. I can picture him as being one of those guys pounding the table to say, hey, Antonio is going to increase his special team snaps, bring it up to 70%, core 4 special teams player, and kind of keep that thing moving from that perspective, which makes it a lot harder for other guys to kind of make that back end of that roster at that point. Is you kind of have to believe that, Ray Lane from Navy was brought in from this staff. They're going to, he's younger, he's cheaper. They're going to give him every opportunity to be that special teams ace unless he fails just at doing it. I think Andrew Wingard, unfortunately, that kind of leads him to maybe being one of those guys who are out, who may be left out in the cold, even though he is a special teams ace also. They have other special team aces. They have like 4 right now, 3 to 4 in that safety room, just specifically.
Is he the longest tenured Jaguar?
He might be, because he was there under Doug Marrone in 2019, Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson, and now he is currently there under Liam. So he might be the
Yeah.
longest tenured Jaguar.
Yeah. Nice little fan favorite. But
yeah, and everyone loves him, right? Everyone loves him. He's the rah-rah guy. He's the locker room guy. He's going to keep these guys together. But at the end of the day, he's going to have to prove it on the field. And there's a lot of guys who can do what he does right now. So it's going to be interesting.
And they're younger. Yep.
That's it.
What about Braswell, Brown, and Prince? They're all corners. Who has the biggest upside between the three?
All right, that's a hard one, because we're talking that some of these guys were brought in, like Prince specifically. He was a dominant press man corner in college. That's what he was brought in to do under Ryan Nielsen's defense. Well, that defense is gone. And if you believe that the Jaguars are going to run a lot more zone, then this isn't the defense for him. Okay. Like, it's not his fault. It's just to say every corner can't play every defense. It's just, that's kind of how that works. So I think someone like Prince could either end up being a guy who either is not on the roster, he's kind of going to either be cut or just, I can't even say traded, because no one's generally trading for a guy that deep into the roster.
Yeah.
He's going to have an uphill battle to show that he can be kind of versatile in the different schemes that he can play in. But also, that's a little bit harder of one. All right, so we got Monteric Brown. Again, he's already in the contract year. We've already talked about him. Christian Braswell has shown kind of a versatility to play in both the zone defense and Mike Caldwell's defense, and a little bit in Ryan Nielsen's defense. So he might have a fighting chance, honestly.
Okay.
And
but none of them seem to stick out to you like in any way. I really like this guy. I think this guy, no matter what the system is, he's even gonna fight for maybe starting time.
I mean, that's, if it's not Monteric Brown, I have nobody else. Like, Monteric Brown has a legitimate opportunity, as folks may not believe it, because of how good Jarian Jones played in 2024. But again, that was a different defense, a different scheme, and I think this one's going to be closer to what Mike Caldwell ran in 2023. So if that is the case, then Monteric Brown has a legitimate chance of kind of showing him up, and I'm just curious to see what that's going to look like. But as far as the rest of the guys, you're fighting for that one spot. I mean, you might have 5-6 guys at that point fighting for one spot, and that's truly going to come back to special teams play, and that's where I just don't know where that piece is going to land. And
a few of these guys could just land on the practice squad, and then who knows? And like you said, they could be cut because they just don't fit the system.
But for a guy like Jabbar Muhammad, I love his play, because I love this play in college. And I'm just curious, because I think that they're going to end up using him a little bit just at safety and corner, and just kind of just figuring out where he can fit in.
Okay.
Just to prove that he belongs on the roster somewhere. Because when you're that deep into the room, it's a deep safety room, but he can also play a little bit of corner, even though he's a little bit undersized. I can see them just trying to move him around and just find out if he can just get in where he can fit in.
Let's move on over to linebacker and Devin Lloyd. I guess we're at a point now where it's kind of time at this juncture. If he fits the system, because even linebackers have to fit the system. But I think Lloyd's that type of guy. He's versatile enough. But what do you think about Devin Lloyd? Do you feel confident or not that he could take that next step and develop into the player that they originally thought they were getting?
I think this is going to be a lot easier on him. I can say that. I think this is going to be a much easier scheme just for him to learn, because they're not going to be doing as much as that match man defense on the back end, where there's a lot of miscommunications and coverage and things of that nature. I would think that was one of the main qualms that I might have had with Devin Lloyd. It wasn't the run stopping. It was simply just the communication of being in the right spot in the secondary with those coverage busts that Pro Football Focus might not call a mental error, but me looking at the film is like, oh no, he was absolutely not in the right spot. He should have been 3 yards to the left. That's why it was a positive on Pro Football Focus, but it was a negative in real life. Those types of things. So overall, I think he's going to have a much easier chance of just showing his athleticism in this defense, where they're just likely going to, if you believe what they did in Green Bay is going to be anything remotely similar, it's going to be a lot of just basic zone on your first 2 downs, and then a lot of blitzing on your 3rd down situation. That's where Devin Lloyd is going to show up. If you can get that guy in the backfield and get him close to that line of scrimmage and just show off that athleticism like he did in college, all of a sudden that guy who's been looking like a question mark throughout the, a good portion of his early part of his career, well, all of a sudden he will earn a bag this offseason from somewhere, if it's not in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it is amazing how you can have that. You can have those, because some players, when they have to read and react then there's too much thinking, and it's not my game. And then you bring in a defensive coordinator that says attack, and it's like, well, all right, yes, finally, I get to do. Yeah, that's easy. Yes,
see ball, get ball. Cool.
That's right.
Easy.
And then, so like you said, that is something that could clearly happen with this team with several of these players. Okay, so they drafted 2 linebackers, and I like McLeod. McLeod's a good player in the 6th round. Kaiser's a steady guy. He'll never beat anything special, but I think both of them were nice picks. And they seem to have a nice deep room if they just go basic 2 linebackers for most of the time. Yep. They've got a lot of depth here. I even like the kid Branson Combs out of Wake Forest. I think it's another guy that could either make the team or be a practice squad guy that eventually finds a spot. But yeah, I think again, they're deep there. What do you think the thinking was? You already have Lloyd, and you've got a couple of the young guys. Do you think they looked at their linebacker group there and said, yeah, even though these are young guys, a couple of these guys might not fit our system, so we're going to go out and get a couple of guys who we think will fit our system?
And I don't know, I'm not 100% sure that it was a system thing, and it might have been. Again, I'm not in their room. I can only just give my interpretation or my impression based on what I'm seeing. I think the Jack Kaiser signing, like he's a 24-year-old, like I believe, 6-year senior who was a leader on their defense, a captain of the defense. Well, Chad Muma's 25. Like they're basically the same as far as, and he's been in the league for nearly his whole contract. So that. Maybe a guy who can just step in and fill that Caleb Johnson role from 2024. What Caleb Johnson is no longer with the team, but he was one of the leading snaps earners in special teams play. I believe it was 83% of his snaps in 2024. So he can be your depth at linebacker in his first year, while also just like being a core 4 special teams guy. Like I think that's the early on goal at bare minimum for Jack Kaiser. Special teams guy who may be able to step in and even earn a Mike linebacker or Will linebacker spot. But then in addition to that, you also have Ventrell Miller, who's also there. He played reasonably well in 2024 when Foye Oluokun got hurt. So to your point, you have a lot of depth, especially if you're going to be playing a lot more, 2 linebacker sets. I think Jack Kaiser may end up being your Mike linebacker of the future because he's kind of shown at least its ability to kind of communicate and get guys lined up and those leadership traits. And Foye Oluokun does have a natural out in his contract after this season. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to be passionate about moving off that contract, but I could absolutely see it being a part of the conversation depending on just how quickly Jack Kaiser picks everything up.
Yeah, it seems like that because that's a lot of young linebackers, and
I think they're going to draft another one next year. Honestly, I said that when they drafted Kaiser, I'm like, they're probably going to draft another one next year because Devin Lloyd's on the 5th-year option and Foye has a natural out. It's possible that they could just say, all right, cool, let's just get these young guys all in here across the board and we'll just see how it goes.
All right. And then up front, this is definitely the strength. You've got between Allen and Walker. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Armstead is still effective. You got a couple of young guys there. We mentioned Smith. You got Jefferson. I like the Carpenter signing after the draft. I think James Carpenter's another guy that could end up either being on the practice squad or even making a spot. And then they got a couple other young guys. Again, I mentioned Jefferson, Cole, Lacey. Talk about what position battles, and even like which guys are going to have to hold on to try to see if they can make the team.
Well, if you're talking about a guy who needs to hold on, I'm looking at Jordan Jefferson in the eyes. Like that's that he's, and it shouldn't be the case. I want to be very clear in saying that. Like Devon Hamilton is as your zero technique, your nose tackle guy, like your big guy who's going to absorb all those double teams. Makes total sense. I mean, he's going to be, I believe he was like top 4 or top 5 in the league as far as his run stopping grade in 2024. But if you ask anyone in Duval County, they wouldn't believe that. The season was so rough. It's just kind of hard to pick those victories. But then you have Jordan Jefferson, who they obviously brought in from LSU to be that, heir apparent to Devon Hamilton, and you just didn't see him play at all. So what is he? Is he going to fit in this new scheme? Was he ready for the NFL? Like he has his first offseason? If he's not, he's not going to be on the roster very long. So it's just like no one really knows what he is. He is truly an enigma. So I think this could be a make or break it time for him. They'll just find another, nose tackle, big guy in the NFL. These guys are the guys who are normally drafted late in the, late in the draft, and you can find them on the waiver wire pretty religiously. So yeah,
and maybe Carpenter. Carpenter's a guy that could actually, if he has a really good camp, you never know.
Right, but he's 288. Like, he's not big.
Yeah, he's not one of those big 330-pound. No, he's not one of those guys. No.
Right. So that's more what Devon Hamilton is, because I think he's like 320 or 3.
Well, what do you think?
No, sorry, I know you said 335.
I know you said what the fans think, but what do you think? What do you think about Hamilton?
I think Hamilton, ever since his back injury, was always questionable. Like, I think he gave you a little bit more pop in the pass rush before his back I believe it was like a back abscess or something along those lines. And it took some time to get his strength back in that following season. So last year was the first time you'd expect to see something real from him.
Okay.
And across the board, that defense last season was just bad.
Yeah.
And I can't put that on him. So this may be the first season that Jacksonville Jaguars fans can truly just say, all right, cool. Who are you, Devon Hamilton? Are you going to be the guy you previously were? Because if you are, they'll be in a great spot, this Jacksonville Jaguars front. And if he's not, I don't know what they have behind him, because there's a lot of question marks. And I'm just being honest about that. Jordan Jefferson, question mark. James Carpenter, who knows? Sure. There's just a lot of guys at that point that's going to have answers will be needed.
Who right now is their number 3? Do they have a number 3 edge rusher with promise? I'm talking about a younger guy, not Smoot or Ogba or even Gardeck.
I mean, yeah, because I thought that was going to be Emmanuel Ogba as soon as they signed him. So if you're talking about just another guy,
a guy that they can count, like, do you think they may have that guy for the future? Between Abdullah, Cole, either one of those guys showing you anything?
I don't think he's on the roster unless you're talking about someone like Jalen McLeod, because he was a stacked linebacker, but he also rushed the passers frequently in college, and he had like an 18% pressure rate. That might be a guy you may want to develop as an edge instead of a linebacker, because you have such a deep linebacker core.
Yep.
You just put some weight on him in the offseason and kind of figure it out from that perspective. So you have options there.
Okay. Offensively, the running back game. By the way, I feel really good that I picked in my dynasty rookie draft. I picked Tootin. I know Jacksonville is going to run the ball a lot. They're going to try to, even though Etienne and Bigsby are there. I really like Tootin. I liked them the last couple of years at Jacksonville. I mean, at Virginia Tech, and really, he had big numbers and was a big player at FCS. We all know that. And even Allen. Big time receiver out of the backfield. You can see exactly what they're doing there. So talk about those 4 running backs there, and how do you think it's all going to shape out? And do you think Etienne can rebound, or are his days numbered with this team?
I think the Jacksonville Jaguars want this running back committee, and it will be a committee from my perspective. They want it to look a lot like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked in 2024 before the injuries to White. I don't know if it's going to be. I mean, that truly does come down to, like, if Tank Bigsby shows his fumbling issues that we've seen in previous years, then all of a sudden you're like, well, he may be just pushed to the side. The same thing could apply for Travis Etienne, who struggled with injury. If he gets injured and someone else steps up to the plate, all of a sudden he can get pushed to the side. I mean, that's exactly what happened in Tampa Bay. But I think going into camp, that's the perspective is probably just like, all right, cool. I believe this is going to be Travis Etienne's backfield. Tank Bigsby is going to be sprinkled in. We're going to use these guys differently. And Bashaw Tootin and LaQuint Allen, one of you guys you're going to have to prove to me you're going to be the better pass protector of this bunch and be that third down back. Because when you're looking into the fantasy football landscape, I don't want to touch any of this. I'm just being honest with you. I don't know.
We had a dynasty team, so I can be patient.
That's it. But if you're talking a redraft league,
I agree with that. No,
LaQuint Allen's going to get, I don't know, 20 to 30% of the snaps, and that's my point of view right now. I haven't seen them in pads yet, and I already believe that he is the best pass protecting back that's on this roster just from his college film.
So he'll be on the field a lot. Yeah,
you're right. Travis Etienne cannot pass protect. Neither can Tank Bigsby. I think that book is written. So that means you have LaQuint Allen and Bashaw Tootin, and we'll see which one of those guys are able to truly learn the playbook and earn those pass protection reps. I don't know where it's going to land.
Okay, tight end. Now, this is not a situation where Jacksonville is in any way in good shape. First, we'll start with Strange. Second round draft pick, a little bit overdrafted. We could pretty much say that by now. We kind of knew that at the time. But you never know. He could develop a little bit. He's clearly the most talented player, at least with the most upside on this roster. But he's not a veteran. He's not a sure thing. So give me the bright side of Brenton Strange and whether or not you think he could develop in his third season.
I mean, the bright side of Brenton Strange is he's a dog in as far as his ability to block in the run game. Like that's his positive. And again, we establish one thing about this Liam Cohen offense, we want to be effective and we want to be efficient in the run game. If we can't do that, we can't be successful anyway. So if you can block and be a plus receiver in the passing game, you don't have to be incredible. You don't have to be Evan Ingram. You simply can't be league worst as far as your run blocking is concerned. That's why Evan Ingram's no longer here. I think that will make a net positive for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. I don't know if it's going to materialize in the fantasy football landscape outside of the week by week flyers, but Brenton Strange, I think, will be a positive, above average NFL tight end. Like, I don't think he's I think he's a very strong run blocker, and I think he's a plus receiver. He's just not one of those guys who's going to. He's not Kelsey and none of those top guys, and that's not a knock on him. It just kind of is what it is.
He just basically should never. It's not his fault he was drafted in the second round. He's a good player, and he's going to be a good tight end. He's just not going to be a dynamic tight end. That's all. So
that's okay. Yeah, that is okay, especially in an offense when you have Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr., and De'Ami Brown at receiver. That's fine. You can be just a good tight end and just taking those underneath catches and kind of moving the chains. Nothing wrong with that.
Is there any specific reason that they signed those three guys? Like, is there a role that they definitely have that you say, who do you think is making this roster? Will all three of those free agents make it?
So we had on the Duval Dive just 2 weeks ago, did a deep dive into this tight end room because everyone kept saying, hey man, this tight end room is the worst. It's the worst. It's the worst. And I didn't believe it. But also, I can see on surface value why someone might say that, especially after getting rid of Evan Ingram. Cool, especially if he has a rebound year in Denver. But when you look at Johnny Munt, for instance, Johnny Munt played under Sean McVay in LA. Actually, both Johnny Munt and Hunter Long played in LA at once. At one point,
was Cohen there when they were there?
They were there. He was there.
Cohen there. Okay.
And then he went to the Minnesota Vikings for 3 years, but he was behind Josh Oliver and who's the other tight end they have there? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Hockenson. There you go. So you have those two tight ends that's in front of you. You're probably not getting any sort of snaps.
No.
Hockenson gets injured late in the season in 2023. He has 2 games that I believe he had like 60 yards receiving one game, and another game he had like 40 some odd yards receiving and a touchdown. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Maybe he might not be a bad guy. We'll see what that looks like in 2024. Okay. And then 2024 comes around, Hawkinson's healthy again, and he's just relegated back to the third guy in line, and you don't know what you have. The Jaguars didn't pick him up. I'm like, oh, maybe they think that they have something with him after seeing him, be in that system, under Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. I'm willing to give them the benefit of a doubt on that one. And then you have someone like Hunter Long, who's, if you believe the analytics at Pro Football Focus, was the 5th ranked pass blocking tight end in 2024 and the 12th ranked run blocking tight end in 2024. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you want to do there. He is Luke Farrell's replacement. After Luke Farrell left to go to San Francisco, he's their guy who's going to make you a little bit more physical, a little bit more dominant. That's what Trent Baalke said Jacksonville Jaguars needed. They needed to be bigger. They needed to be more physical. They needed to be more dominant as far as the run game is concerned. Right. Well, that would indicate that Hunter Long is what Trent Baalke said you wanted to be. He's your answer. Give me a 2 tight end, 3 tight end set where you can just dominate guys and be effective and be efficient. That sounds like what you want to do. If that's what you want to do, Liam Cohen, kudos. we'll see if it works.
Yeah, and I actually liked Morris. It was interesting because he had a really nice career at Bowling Green, and
Yep.
he was behind all those
Played
really
in
good
Buffalo.
tight ends at Buffalo, and
Yep.
so I think he actually is the one that might. You talked about the blockers. I think Morris might be a guy that might be able to show off a little bit as a receiver.
That's fair. He may be the one that has the most upside. It's just the question of is he going to have the opportunity to show it? I mean, outside of injury and something along those lines. So, like if a Brenton Strange injury occurs, he may be the guy who can jump the line. In essence, we know this is not a fluid thing. It's not 4 guys and then this guy is automatically first. It depends on the guy that gets injured, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So in that situation, I think he may be the guy who has the better chance of kind of jumping that line after spending those 2 years. Was 2 years, 3 years in Buffalo?
I think 3.
I'm doing it by memory, and I'm sorry, but yes, nevertheless,
2021.
His time
Yep,
in Buffalo.
3 years.
Yeah, behind Dawson, Knox and Kincaid in 2024 also.
That's
so
right.
Obviously, that's another situation where you got 2 good tight ends in front of you.
Yep.
I can understand you may not have had the opportunity to kind of showcase your talents just yet, and that's a low risk flyer. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, we talked about the interior of the offensive line. I got to ask you about Walker Little because there was a lot of talk about let's say they don't make the move for Travis Hunter. Well, there's a lot of talk about will the Jacksonville Jaguars use that pick on a tackle, and will Walker Little just be a really good swing? Well, that's not what happened, and he's now the starting left tackle. So, do you think he's ready? And does it come down to health? I don't care if there's a second round pick. I mean, I know there's talent there, but what do you think? Because the left tackle job for a full season, he's never done it before. So, do you think he's ready?
Oh, that's such a hard question. And if it was easy, I'd be a general manager right now. But no, is Walker Little ready? I don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think most in NFL circles would probably argue that the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line coaching over the past few years, pretty much the entire Doug Peterson tenure, wasn't the greatest. No. And I don't think that's like some crazy statement to make. Yeah. Like it wasn't the greatest. So now you have a new coaching staff. You have a new scheme that may be a little bit more versatile, that may not be pigeonholing guys into only running wide zone. Maybe, be a little bit more versatile like Tampa Bay did when they started the season off running a lot more zone and then kind of switching the thing to run more gap later in the year because it just worked better for them. If you have a situation like that where the coaching staff is truly in tune with what you're strong at and what you're weak at, then it's quite possible that you can see the best Walker Little we've ever seen. I'm not the person to hold out hope for that. I'm just opening that door for that conversation at least.
Sure.
Walker Little's injuries obviously matter. They matter significantly. Like he has to stay healthy. If you can't stay healthy, none of this conversation even matters. But if you're just talking about his actual skill on the field, he's shown spurts of it. We would just need to see some sort of consistency from him to truly know that, like, who he is. But I think he's going to have it's his job to lose it from my perspective. Like, I don't think someone like Fred Johnson is going to kind of like jump him, if not in camp. Like, I think it would have to be Walker's truly struggling to lose that role. And it's weirdly, I actually have the opposite feeling with Anton Harrison, who's dominant in the pass game, but I think I need to see better in the run game from him.
Okay.
So that's a weird.
But he'll be given that chance as well, don't you think? Or
exactly that's exactly how I feel. But it's weird. So Anton's a weirder one because Anton, if you heard the comments from the Jacksonville Jaguars coaching staff, like even in the offseason, and I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, so this is truly me paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of Anton can do it when Anton wants to. And I'm not saying that's not the exact quote, but that's the gist of it. And I'm like, that didn't sound good. That sounded like they are questioning your effort. And no one expressly said it. It was kind of one of those things like, okay, I got questions on what this is going to truly be for Anton Harrison, because even though folks don't look at it like a contract year, it is in effect a contract year for Anton Harrison with the other tackles that they did bring in. And the fact that he has not had one average to above average run blocking year in the NFL. Okay. And some of that is on the coaching staff that was previously here. Some of that may even be attributed to the fact that he was next to Brandon Scherf, who was not a great run blocker, that's who he's doing these combo blocks with. I don't know where that lands, and that's going to be truly up to Anton Harrison on the grass when they put pads on coming next week. But I want to watch that. It's so many things to watch, and I only have 2 eyes. It's going to be fascinating.
Well, that's why, as we started off with, that's why the whole training camp deal is going to be interesting, and we're going to watch these guys and you're going to see if they can develop. I know it's only camp, and it's really going to matter when the season begins. But by the way, Foster, now that he's in his second year, I mean, do you think he has a legitimate chance to push these guys?
I think Javon Foster can potentially be one of the guys who don't make this roster.
Really?
And I had this conversation with, and I'm not even sure who it was. It was on the Duval Dive podcast. If it wasn't this past week's episode, it was the week before last. And the gist of it being is you didn't know who he was when they got him on the grass. And it seemed very obvious to me personally that the staff didn't favor his lack of grit as far as like moving guys in the run game and things of that nature. And it seemed very early on, it was like, oh yeah, he's at least a year off development wise.
Yes.
That's just me looking at this in practice, just looking at how he's moving and everything else. It's like, oh, okay, he needs a little bit of work. I think that was a known when they got him, but this Jacksonville Jaguars coaching staff, as we already established, was not good at developing guys. So I don't know that he's made much progress between then and now with his first NFL offseason, and he's just getting in with these new coaches. So he's going to have an uphill battle with all the competition that they brought into this offensive line. I mean, again, you bringing in 6 new guys into this unit, and he may not even have had the time to truly develop and mature himself and elevate his game. So I'm just curious about how that's going to end up by week 1. So I don't know if he's going to make the roster or not.
I mean, that's it. How hard it is to get your hands on young, quality, even experienced linemen like him in the SEC. Right. If he doesn't make a roster, man, he's got some issues. So, but that could also just mean that maybe you're bringing in other guys, because I'm sure the Jags are going to be very busy when it comes to the last week of final preseason game, cut down. Yep. But this isn't going to be our final roster after we set it a week before the season. There might be 5 new guys on Jacksonville, after they make their initial 53-man roster limit. And it could be a couple of linemen. Who knows?
Well, so think about it from this perspective. Like you're likely, realistically, going to probably have 10 offensive linemen on the Jacksonville Jaguars 53-man roster.
Yep.
Probably. Like some teams may carry, up as small as 9, as much as maybe 12.
Good. Yeah, but
10's
right.
about good.
Yeah.
Well, you have the starting 5 already. I mean, and I'm just making the assumption it's going to be Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, Anton Harrison. And then you got guys like Fred Johnson, who we've already established. I thought he was pretty dominant in the run game.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another guy. You got like Luke Fortner, whoever that backup center is going to be, whether it's Luke Fortner or Jonah Monheim.
One guy will win it. Yep.
One guy's going to win it.
Yep.
You got Wyatt Millum. He's on the roster. I don't think that's a question. Cole Van Lanen, who's a swing tackle option and a little, younger also. And you brought in Chuma Edoga, and you have, well, we've talked about Cooper Hodges already. It's his injury situation. Dennis Daly, Javon Foster, Sal Wormley, and all those guys are just in that same. Yeah. That's your competition for one spot, 6 guys.
Yeah.
I don't know that Javon Foster is going to win that. I truly don't. And that's where it gets kind of squirrely.
You can stick him on a practice squad, but somebody will probably pick him up. A 4th round draft pick, all that young, SEC experience, that young. Yeah. He'll be picked up. Yeah.
That's it.
So, yeah. Okay. So by the way, at wide receiver, of course, Brian Thomas was fantastic. I know I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I was able to get him like really late in the draft, believe it or not. So I was like ecstatic. But De'Ami Brown, I've been waiting for De'Ami Brown. I mean, watching him play at North Carolina, I really thought that, wow, this guy's going to really be a really fun player to watch in the NFL. And he's just one of those players who just took a little time, and he broke out last year. And he broke out with a really good quarterback. And that's maybe what it really took. And so now he reaped the benefits. He's here. And along with Brian Thomas, that's a nice little 1-2 punch, especially if they go with Travis Hunter to make it a heck of a young threesome.
Right. That's going to be a great one. And I watched every single De'Ami Brown target from the 2024 season. And what appeared very obvious to me was the fact that they just did so much of scheming his, catches later in the season that they weren't doing early on, that he probably would have had a much bigger season had they just chose that's what they wanted to do early throughout the year. So from my perspective, when folks say I'm questioning whether or not De'Ami Brown's going to be the guy because they only saw that 3-game sample size, in my head I'm like, well, I saw what Liam Cohen did in Tampa Bay. I watched every single Mike Evans and every single Chris Godwin snap from 2024. He runs so many bubble screens and jailbreak screens that it is ridiculous. And that was one of the key routes that De'Ami Brown ran in Washington. I'm like, oh, no, he's going to carbon copy that right over here. Yeah, that's going to be De'Ami Brown and Brian Thomas Jr. running a boatload of screens, running a lot of deep outs and speed digs and go balls. Yeah, I think those are absolutely what De'Ami's going to do. I've seen him show out in OTAs, and he was absolutely the most dominant guy on the field. And that's saying a lot when you have someone like Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter on the field at the same time. I just think he's one of those guys who picked up the offense a lot quicker than the rest of them. So he was always Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket and just in the right spot. But we've seen this in past years, and guys show out early in camp and then they disappear as soon as you get pad zone. Like, I want to see it in pads, but I will acknowledge that De'Ami Brown was in every way exactly what you'd want him to. He showed exactly what you'd want him to show after that 3-game sample size late in Washington. And if he kept it going, the Jaguars will be doing really good to have him as a number 3 receiver, because he could even step in case of injury and be your number 2.
The thing I am bothered with, though, is that, again, they don't have a dynamic tight end in the passing game.
Yeah.
And if you have some issues with Etienne and I mean, I'm not even going to include Bigsby, but if you say Etienne, and maybe you don't get a whole lot out of the running back spot in the passing game either, because, relying on a rookie, it's asking a lot. That means that you've got 3 really good receivers. Again, if Hunter winds up being full-time, but the depth, that's where they've got a lot of questions. So are there any of these players outside the top 3 that we need to give a little bit more respect for, that keep an eye on them? Maybe they could be a lot better than we think.
Well, we know Parker Washington can be a solid slot receiver. I don't know how well he's going to hold up out as far as being an outside guy against press man coverage and just getting the separation that's necessary. But we've seen when Christian Kirk was injured in the 2024 season, in spot moments where he's like a lot asked of him, where he can kind of just keep the chains moving, be that 10-yard, 15-yard down the field guy, on those option routes, and kind of just fill that Christian Kirk role. I think he's a fine option, especially for your number 4 receiver and also playing a lot on special teams. But then you have other guys like Eli Panko out of Duke, who's the bigger body guy. They don't have very many of those on the roster. It's just, if you're looking at the style of guys that they have, like a bigger guy who can block, but who can also just go up and get that jump ball. I believe he had like a 40-inch vert, and he ran like a 4. It was a 4.4 or 4.3 in the 4.3s in his 40. Yard dash. Nevertheless, like, he's a fast guy who can jump and is a big body guy.
Okay.
If he doesn't make the roster, he's absolutely one of those practice squad guys, like key practice squad guys that I just couldn't see them letting go because they just don't have anyone that's fitted like him, if that makes sense.
Is he the top out of all those? What are there? 5 CFAs? Is he at the top at receiver?
He's got to be at the top. It will be between him and Joshua Cephas, who was everyone's darling in 2024, and then he ended up, I believe he made the practice squad, but he didn't play like much as far as the actual year is concerned. So you have Eli Panko versus Josiah Cephas for that final receiver spot. Is kind of how I see that likely end up going. But yeah, Eli Panko, 6'3", 205, and out of Duke.
Okay, so Panko. And I mean, do you think Panko and Cephas, are you putting Cephas in that, or you're not sold on Cephas as a guy that might be able to be
I'm not sold on it because, again, I have my personal opinion of who he is, and then there's a whole new coaching staff's opinion of who he is. I didn't see much from him in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. that means little. I'm there half the practice days because they're not open to the media. My opinion on that doesn't matter as much until I can get more evidence and more of a book on him and just see more in practice.
Okay.
But overall, those are the guys who at least I know to be looking out for, because you have a few other guys like Trenton Irvin, who's going to be more of a special team, maybe a returner guy, and they have a few options there already. So I'm just thinking.
And Trammell as well? Trammell's
Trammell.
just a guy?
Trammell.
Austin Trammell's just a guy, right? What is he, a special teams guy or?
Yeah, he was a punt returner at one point, I believe, last year. And yeah, he's a fine receiver. I just don't know that he's going to beat out most of the guys I've named so far.
Probably not. That's what I'm saying. I mean, this is again, I said in the very beginning, there's some depth issues that they're going to have to deal with, and it'll come. A couple of drafts, a couple of off seasons, you start building that up, and there won't be so many unknowns as far as when I ask these types of questions.
But how many teams really have 3 dang good receivers? Like, for real? Like, just 3?
Oh, no. 3 star receivers? No. That's I tell you right now, the Tampa Bay has the best the top 3 receivers, and maybe even 4.
And Cincinnati,
Eagles,
maybe.
Cincinnati doesn't really. We don't know if they have a 3 though. I know, the kid scores touchdowns, the slot kid, but that's all he does right now in his career. And so the Eagles have got a real good 2. You don't know about the Washington Commanders guy because he really didn't.
Gotcha.
I don't think he wowed. So I mean, I agree. That's why when people talk about things like that around draft time, and I see teams that have 2 credible receivers, and they go, oh, they need a wide receiver. So why do you think they need 3-star receivers for? You don't need 3-star receivers when you don't have this, that, and that on the team.
Right.
Fix all those other things first before you want to have a. So they're actually, the Jags are in a great position that if Hunter becomes their wide receiver starter over a DB, let's just say, they're going to have as talented as a 3 receiver. Again, this is up to De'Ami Brown to also, be a consistent season-long guy. Then that's going to be as good as a young trio there is in the league. So
that's it. So they may not have the depth, but not many teams who have that kind of starting trio is going to have the depth. So it's going to be up to some other guys developing behind them. Yeah, and that's no different than the Rams. I mean, Puka Nacua obviously wasn't drafted to be the guy that he ended up being. They hoped he would, but that wasn't the expectation. So maybe one of these guys can be that flash.
You never know. You never know. That's like you said, where the coaching comes from. And I like Lassiter. I think Lassiter is a guy that will be interesting to watch. But they obviously knew what they were doing when they signed 6 CFA wide receivers. Okay, so give me a breakout performer, someone that you think, if you had a bet on it, that you think on offense or defense could have a breakout type season.
All right, so we already talked about De'Ami Brown, so I'm going to leave him off the list just because we've already mentioned him.
Okay.
Devin on defense, Devin Lloyd was one of the guys. Again, we already touched on him, but we haven't talked much about Eric Armstead at defensive tackle.
I'm talking about a younger guy.
Oh, younger.
Someone that's not proven yet.
Younger.
Yeah.
Not proven.
Yeah. Someone that's gonna have his first big season, and it doesn't have to be a star. Just somebody that hey, I didn't expect him to start. That kind of thing. I don't know how many guys.
I don't know how many younger guys are going to have an opportunity to truly start outside of someone like a Caleb Bransall, just because of the way that roster is kind of set up. Like on offense, you kind of know who the guys are walking into the season outside of offensive line, and most of those guys are still older because they're brought in free agency, or maybe someone like a Wyatt Millum if he ends up earning that spot over Patrick McCarry or Ezra Cleveland. So overall, it's got to be I feel like the answer has to be Caleb Bransall. After his time in Tulane playing that spear position, where he's playing.
Well, how about a veteran? How about somebody that's been in the league?
So you want a veteran? Okay.
Yeah, give me somebody that sort of like if you thought a Brown or a Braswell or a Johnson or even a Jones that you thought was going to take that next step. Any of those types of guys, Ventrell Miller.
So Monteric Brown was my guy from the jump.
Montaric
Monteric Brown
Brown.
was my guy. Man, Monteric Brown was my guy under
Okay.
Mike Caldwell. I just thought he was going to be on the outs after going to Ryan Nielsen, who's this press man defense guy. And Monteric Brown runs like a 4.5 40. He's not going to fit that scheme. It just didn't make sense. Now, if you're going back to a more heavily zone defense, I think Monteric Brown has a legitimate opportunity to push Jarian Jones for that role. And I don't want to say it because I hate the fact that it's true. I'm a former cornerback for UCF. I'm a cornerback guy. I have my bias. That is my bias, the cornerback room. It just is. And
Oh, look at this scouting report here.
It's most likely scheme dependent as he excels as a zone defender and is marginal. That is it to a T. It works for him so well, and he's so dominant as an impressed man. And I say this to anyone in the media when we've had these conversations in training camp. I'm like, that dude is the only dude on the roster, Monteric Brown, who is a physical press man corner. So the rest of the guys, for the most part, in my opinion, all of them, they're corners who will mirror you very well, and they'll press you and they'll run with you. Monteric Brown is the one that is on the roster that will try to jam you into the dirt. He will try to actually jam you hard, physical jam at the line, and not let you get off. And you're 5 yards down the field when it's been 7 seconds in the backfield. Like, he's that guy.
I like that. You need those guys.
Because he's the only guy like that, and he's absolutely solid in zone. I actually kind of want him to be the guy because you need different guys with different techniques to play with different.
I like Brown. I think Brown's a good pick. Yeah,
but I love Jarian Jones also out of FSU,
and I do too.
It's tough.
I think Jones. Yeah, I think Jones has more upside, but I can definitely see Jones having a really big year and solidifying himself as a star.
And it's contract year, and you want to see a guy succeed in contract year, even if he's not in Jacksonville, and in next season, just so he can get himself a big contract, especially after being a undrafted guy.
Okay, so week 1 is home against Carolina. Right now, Jacksonville is a 3-point favorite. I know it's early, but what do you think about what do you think about starting against Carolina week 1?
All right. So Carolina, the Panthers are feisty. As much as folks want to say that this is going to be a guaranteed win for Jacksonville, and all the fans are already talking trash on all the socials, and we've seen all the fighting. It's been happening. It's been happening a lot.
I like Carolina.
Oh, but similar to Jacksonville, I think they're both like young. And Jacksonville's got a lot younger. They're both improved from their 2024 version.
Nice
and
matchup.
I even made the joke in one of my group chats earlier this morning. Like, hey man, I think folks will lose it if the Jaguars lost against the Panthers. I think it'd be a fire drill because the Jaguars have a 7-game stretch right after that against some really tough teams after the Panthers. So you kind of have to hope that you win that game, because if it's not, it's death row. It truly is. But I think I think the Panthers need a little more star power to kind of get them over the top week to week. Like, I don't think you're going to know what you're really going to get from them. They're going to be a little bit more volatile in 2024. They're a team that can kind of sneak up on you, especially in week 1, without having those weeks of tapes to kind of figure out what changes they've made over this season to season. Actually, a lot like the Indianapolis Colts. They on defense, they have J.C. Horn at cornerback. They got safety, Trevon Mooring and Mike Jackson. That's a solid secondary. I know Pro Football Focus said that they were going to be bad. I don't agree with that. I actually thought that's a pretty solid secondary overall. And they got Derek Brown returning from injury. That's going to make that game closer than folks in Duval may realize, because the Jaguars' interior O-line has question marks.
No, I think Carolina is going to be I think they're going to be competing for that second spot. I mean, Young made big improvements. And you talk about Cohen. Well, Canales was right there before him, and he is developing Young, and he's doing what he was brought to Carolina to do. And I love Ted McMillan. He was my first-round draft pick in my Dynasty League. So I love the kid. I think he's going to be a great fit there. And I think Carolina is going to be a 500 type team with an opportunity to make the playoffs if all goes well. I really do. I think it'd be a good team this year. So I know Jacksonville fans, if they lose, they're going to be upset, but Carolina is not going to be a bad team. So
I said it. I said it. I'm like, hey man, Carolina Panthers could be an 8 or 9 win NFC South champion, and no folks wouldn't. I mean, you won't know that at the time that
you
the
don't.
game
It's
is
too
played.
early. Yeah.
Right. So it's just like, hey, they're a rebuilding team. They played Cohen tight in the first game, at least in Tampa against Tampa Bay in 2024. The Tampa Bay won in overtime, 26-23. Like folks don't remember that. Like, all right, cool. This is the same Liam Cohen with a better roster than the Jacksonville Jaguars have, at least at this current point in time, in my opinion. It was like week 13. All right. I think that could be a hungry little interesting game for the
Should
Jaguars to
be.
open the season. I do think the Panthers need more at linebacker. They need more of that second safety spot, the one that we didn't mention. And up front on offensive line and just a few more splash players. So I do have the Jags beating the Panthers in a close one early on that kind of gets comfortable later in the fourth quarter, maybe 27 to 20 or 27-17, something like that.
Giving score predictions in July. All right.
That's me. Sight unseen. I got to do it.
Okay. So we'll wrap up since you're hot on the predictions with Jacksonville's regular season win total. So they're sitting here right now at 7.5. You can look at it. These two right here, they're over 7.5 minus 125. Or if you want to take the chance on over 8.5 plus 140.
Take the over. Take the over.
But
take
which
the
one?
Over
7.5 or 8.5?
I'm taking. If I'm putting my money on it right now, I'm taking over 9.5.
Over 9.5.
I can lie to you all day.
Who's going to win the division?
I could lie to you all day, but if I'm being honest with you, I think this is a weak AFC South. I think the Houston Texans are overrated.
It is a weak AFC South.
I think their offensive line is bad, and I think CJ Stroud's going to have a second year struggling.
Their
I think
offensive
folks
line
don't
is
realize
awful.
it yet. So overall, when you look at if the Jaguars beat the Panthers, win one or two of those first, that rough slate of games by the bye week, and they end the season with a super soft schedule, I don't see how they don't win 9. So at that point, we're talking about the difference of one game personally, from my perspective. I do have them at 10 wins competing for the AFC South Championship, primarily due to a weak division. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Let's take a look at the schedule. So, all right. So here's that tough part you're talking about. So at Cincinnati.
Yep.
And then you got a big division matchup at home right off the bat. At San Francisco, home Kansas City, Seattle. Well, if you're a team that you think is going to win the division or has a shot, then you got to win that game.
You got it.
And the Rams is another tough one.
And that
one is in London. Yeah. How many London games?
Just the one. Just the one this year.
Just one. I thought doesn't Jacksonville like going over to Europe every?
They normally do, but they probably gave them a break with the new coaching staff and everything else.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's the
bye.
And
then you have the bye, and after that bye,
the schedule must be easier, right?
That's what I mean. So if you can get 3 wins of those before the bye week, I think you're actually in the solid spot. Just period there.
All right, Raiders road at Houston. Okay. Well, that one is going to be a tough one.
It's a tough one, yeah.
That one on the road, you don't know. No, too early to tell. Well, you got to sweep Tennessee if you're going to win the division.
There it is.
You got to win 3 out of 4 at least against Tennessee and Indianapolis if you're going to win the division, at least.
Yeah. So you're going to get Indianapolis
Jets,
twice.
That's a winning game at home.
You got
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Broncos, another Colts,
and you
got the Colts twice. You got the Titans twice, both times after the bye.
So look at that: Tennessee, Indianapolis, and if the Jets don't have a good year again, then you've got Indianapolis and Tennessee again. So
you see what I mean?
Yeah,
that's not the crazy schedule that you like. Going into the playoffs, that's what you want.
They could end the season 5-1, at least.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden folks will just be singing the praises. Hey, they figured it out. Not the schedule got easy. It's just they figured it out. They got it all right. And now they're the team no one wants to face, quote unquote, because you know how the media works. That's
as we said at the very beginning, there's talent there. And like you said, the division is soft. And Houston is basically one quarterback injury away from being a 5-win team. So as long as they keep CJ Stroud healthy, they're tough. But that team is also, look, it's interesting because even though many people believe they're the clear favorite, they're only like even money, I think, to win the division. So it's not like they're just heavy favorites. So there are people who believe that they're maybe a little bit vulnerable. And Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville is the second choice in the division.
Yeah, most times I've seen it, they've been second choice, with followed up by the Colts as third.
Yeah, that's probably the case then. Let's see, where are they? Yep, second choice, 3-1. Houston's even, and the Colts are 4-1. So okay. So you're getting me really interested now in Jacksonville. And look, it was just a couple of years ago that, and this is what I tell people, it's just a couple of years ago that Trevor Lawrence and the Jags were in the postseason, and everything was hopeful, and and then it just fell apart. But you still got the quarterback, and there's talent there.
You're hitting it right on the head. That is it. The Jacksonville Jaguars, after 2022, had everyone believing in them, and everything was hunky-dory, and they could do no wrong, and it was all about the future, and it just crashed and burned. But honestly, I think the Houston Texans right now are where the Jacksonville Jaguars were after the 2022 season. Like, I think the Houston Texans in 2024 and after 2023 was what the Jacksonville Jaguars were after the 2022 season. Like, everyone just thought CJ Stroud could do no wrong. He ended up crashing a little bit after that season. And now we're going to figure out what exactly this is for the Houston Texans after they've gotten rid of their offensive coordinator. The Jaguars chose not to with Doug Peterson and Press Taylor. That's the only difference so far. So I think it's actually a pretty similar situation for both teams. And Houston could be on the way to having a true, rebuild of that, offensive staff if CJ Stroud doesn't have a better year than he had in 2024.
Well, like you hit it on the head. I mean, I think they may have, they definitely have one of the bottom 5 offensive lines on paper in the NFL. And they've got to fix that, or CJ Stroud's going to get hurt. And then again, if he gets hurt, they're in big trouble. So
Cam Robinson, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Cam Robinson. So anyway, yes, Jacksonville is definitely one of those teams that you want to keep an eye on in the AFC South. You're always looking for those sleeper teams. Matter of fact, I was looking it up and I saw that Jacksonville, now this is working against them though. I noticed that Jacksonville in their history, anytime they have had a losing season, they have followed the losing season with another losing season. So if you have a winning season and a losing season, that next year in the history of the history has always been a second straight losing season. That's what they're bucking. They're trying to do that for the first time in their history. They're trying to make sure they don't go back to back losing seasons after a winning season.
That's rough. Way to bring the temperature down, man. That's
these trends are made to be broken.
Yeah,
it can't go on like that forever. So at some point, the trend will break, and maybe this is the year, and it's a perfect time for it. Again, new fresh outlook, GM, head coach, and I think we'll find a lot out with this team too during the camp, during the preseason, how the mood is. Do they stay away from injuries because they can't afford the big injuries? So, if they stay healthy and they got a positive thing going, then yes, I'm going to be on board with this team as a nice little sleeper. So,
the 2 biggest questions I have for the Jaguars are, will the offensive line be better than it was in any of the past 3 years? If you can give me an average run blocking offensive line, I think this team is easily a 10-win team. And I'll say easily. If you have the right defensive coordinator in Anthony Campanelli, I think he can use those tools that were given to him from Ryan Nielsen's staff, from Ryan Nielsen's roster, and actually make this an average to above average defense. I think they had the guys on staff. They just weren't coached in the right ways in 2024. I hope to see it's going to be better for the Jaguars in 2025.
Yeah, you're right. That offensive line is definitely the biggest worry that I would have. You got to count on Walker Little. You also have to count on Robert Hainsey. I mean, Robert Hainsey might be like a sure thing potentially at center, but because he doesn't have anybody to really compete against. I mean, unless Monheim goes out there and surprises everybody.
31-inch arms in a conference with DeForest Buckner is also going to be worrying a little bit, man. That's just on some level.
Yeah, that's true. So that offensive line is definitely, I can see it being the big question. which is, again, is why preseason matters, training camp matters. You got to see how these guys perform. And who knows, maybe a couple of these rookies play better than people think. And maybe Walker Little goes out there and shows you that, maybe Harrison and Little show you that, yeah, we can do this. We can handle this. So
better supporting cast. Yeah. Maybe that's it.
So anyway, check out. We'll have links in the description. Actually, you can check it out right now. There's links in the description where you can find out everything about the Jacksonville Jaguars, Travis, over at bigcountry.com. And again, Travis, you got the Duval Dive podcast, and that is available how many times a week?
Let's just go with 4 to 5 times a week, generally, especially in season.
Let's go with that. Do you have like a post-game show or anything, or?
Exactly. We have a post-game show. If it's a home game, it's from the stadium. If it's an away game, I'll probably do it, virtual, or unless it's like reasonably local, I may travel. Just depends
from
on
the stadium.
Oh, I'm a credentialed media member. I am at the practices giving you observations, which I give 3-minute drills after training camp practices to let you know what I've seen, since no one else is there to see it. I want you to know first. So we are truly on the scene.
That's awesome. So check it out. Follow Travis at bigcountry.com. You got the podcast that you can follow Travis all season long as well. And I look forward to talking to Travis during the season, especially with that tough schedule early on. I think that's a really good opportunity at some point. If they get off to a good start, there might be a nice game in there, third week, fourth week of the season where we go, is this team for real? I don't know. It's time to call Travis and try to see if we can talk and find out exactly what's going on here with Jacksonville. Or maybe they get off to, what is it? They play Houston week 3?
Week 3.
All right, so maybe they get off to they upset Cincinnati, because Cincinnati always loses in September. So maybe Jacksonville goes 2-0 and they take on Houston, and then you could be sure that I will be talking to Travis before that Houston game. So
man. Yeah, Cincinnati will have no defensive ends on the roster. That'd be great. Yes.
You never know.
On the contract.
Yeah, you don't want them on the roster anyway. You never know what's going to happen. You don't want to face them.
I want Cincinnati early, because at this current time that we're speaking, they don't have Henderson. They don't have Henderson under the contract. They don't have their first round draft pick under the contract. Both defensive ends are not signed, so that will just that'll be another fascinating part of the conversation if they don't get those guys signed by week 2. Jaguars can be playing against like no pass rush, so that'd be interesting.
That's the thing about the NFL is that early in the season, you don't know. There's reasons why teams can get off to slow starts or fast starts, and then all of a sudden, a month later, they're completely different. I mean, just look at the Eagles. The Eagles started off real slow last year, and then boom. So anything is possible early on. A lot of matchup situations. It's big in the NFL, especially with the limited practice and all that. It takes time to really know if you have a good team or not. And so we'll see. I think it's going to be a fun year to follow the Jags. I think they're headed in the right direction with their foundation. And if Trevor Lawrence can take that next step and get developed here by Cohen, then I think the Jags fan base is going to have something to follow here for some years to come. Right? Positive.
Sounds good to me. Positive. Yeah. I love the optimism. I look forward to it coming true, because I'm not generally that person. I have a this team makes me drink shirt, if that lets you know where I live. But
so the glass is half empty. Okay. See, this glass right here is half full, my friend Travis.
Half
I like
full.
It. Yours is half empty. All right, Travis, thank you very much. And don't forget to check back with us at some point during the season when we get Travis on again. And meanwhile, links in the description. You can follow Travis and the Jags all season long. And follow us here at Proline TV and the Arledge Football Network as we preview more NFL and college football action all the way through till opening week in college football and opening day in the NFL and so forth. So, Travis, thanks a lot. This was fun.
No, I appreciate you having me. This is great. An hour and a half deep dive on the Jaguars.
That's a deep dive.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Urban Meyer. That's crazy. So appreciate it.
Good
stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis.